through sort of the agenda for the night.
I don't know.
We were able to get up on the future Zooms are all now on the calendar on our website. So you can click on them to register there or through Eventbrite if you get to Eventbrite a different way.
Okay.
And there's not a particular sequence that's required. So if you want to skip the second one and come to the third one, or just show up and show off your awesome mittens at the last one, whatever you'd like to do is great. We would love to see you. So you can feel free to do that. The next thing I was going to do was flip my camera around. Is there anybody who would like, I'm not sure how many new knitters we have here, but I can actually do a demonstration of casting on or of doing the color work or the increases.
Yeah, and you know, if anybody needs help with that too, I can help too. So
great. So I guess what I'll say is, if you don't want to watch anything else and you'd like to say goodnight, then this is a good moment, and we wish you happy knitting. And if anybody wants to say, please throw into the chat, or let me know if you have any questions or anything you particularly like help with.
I'm gonna sign out.
Thank you for joining us. Happy knitting.
Happy knitting.
bye.
Bye. See you next time.
Okay.
We did have one question, Susie, from the chat while those of us who are staying to watch you knit and talk a little bit more. If you do want to come to any of the other meetings, you would go to our calendar or go to Eventbrite and sign up there for each individual meeting. Yes.
Okay, so you're not going to send a notification like the first one then? We have to go to Eventbrite to do that.
Or go to the calendar. Once you sign up on the calendar, Eventbrite should automatically be sending you the links to join.
All right, Susie, go ahead. No more questions right now.
Okay. So we will go ahead and go to the rear, and nobody has any specific thing they need to see?
No.
I've never done color work before, so I'll definitely stay on to watch that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm most curious about too.
Okay, well then, so I have worked this out so that I can reach around, and I have the beginning of the cuff, the beginning of a mitten here. Well, here, oh, so I should show you while I'm here the evolution of these mittens. When I first looked at them and I looked at those duplicate stitches, I thought it was steeped. So this was the first attempt where I actually knit the tube, and then I tried to steek it and just cut it and put it on. And I really do not recommend that. That is a very bad idea. It does not work at all. And then the next time I did it, I put them up, and I did it the way I've done other mittens, and I ended up with a thumb that gives you a right and a left. And it took me a little while to figure out that in order to have a mitten that's ambidextrous so that you have one pattern for both sides, I had to put the center of the gusset right on the edge of the mitten at the beginning of the round. And by now I was running out of my shaker yarn and time. So I switched over to children's mittens. So now I have a little one where I finally got the thumb in the right place. So the 4-stitch repeat and the centering the middle of the gusset on the beginning of the round is really the important thing to remember as you're going through the pattern. And at the top, I did it so that you decrease down. If you follow the pattern all the way to the end, you get this very pointy one. And if you like it a little rounder, you can just bail out a row or two ahead of time when you have more stitches and pull them together there. And so then it's not quite so pointy. That is how that works. For knitting with the colors, have you guys read charts? Are you all good on reading charts? I know at least one person here may not be, so let me find.
I've only read a chart once, so I'm still new at it.
Okay, so when you're reading a chart because we're knitting in the round, we're only knitting. Sometimes when you read a chart, if you're going back and forth on your needles, you're knitting and purling. So when you're knitting, you read the chart from left to right. If you were purling, you would then read it from left to right, going backwards. Since we're knitting, we're going to keep going in the same direction and go around and around. Now, say for the children's mittens or for the adults, if you had 52 stitches, it's too hard to make, it gets unwieldy really to have the 52 squares all the way around. So this is just an example, a sampling of 12, and inside the green is the repeat. So even if you only had this, if you followed that and then did it over and over around the round, it would work. So my first stitch is going to be a contrast color stitch. And then there's 2 that are the main color, and then another one that's the contrast color. So here I am. This is my beginning of round, is right here. Actually, it's going to confuse you. I'm a little further up here. I just realized, so this chart that I'm showing you is the bottom of the cuff, and I'm past that. And I looked at it and suddenly realized that doesn't make any sense. We're on a different part altogether. So on the thumb gusset, these ones might be tricky to, more intimidating to look at, because what these purple one means is that that stitch is not there yet. So you would knit here a main color stitch, and then your second stitch is a contrast color stitch. And then 3 of the main color, and then a contrast color. When you get up to this little symbol, you would add a stitch in, and each time you add one, the purple disappears because you then create a straight row. So the thing to remember when you are switching colors is that you don't want to pull it too tight. I will also say, once you get started here, I stopped actually looking at the charts on the paper and I started reading it on the mitten, because it's so straightforward that it's every 3rd stitch. So I've done a contrast, 3 of the main color, and then a contrast color. It's a good idea to decide if your contrast color is always going to go over the top for the twist or always underneath. If you switch back and forth, you'll start to get your balls of yarn tangled much faster. So I always take the contrast and go over the top. And when I go to make that stitch, the important thing is to keep it loose enough so that these 3 stitches in between don't get bunched into a ridge. So you want to pull your stitches to the right and keep it spread out. And you can always check on the back and make sure that these 3 stitches aren't being squeezed. And then I go back, and since I'm going back to main color, I'm going to go under it. And do 3. And then a main color. There. So that is really all you need when you go to turn the corner. This is a little bit of a dangerous moment, because if you pull, if now that I've had 3 main color and I'm going to go to my contrast color, if I pull that, it's sort of easy to make it too short. So you want to make sure that one stays loose enough so that you don't make a ridge on the edge. That's what works there. And that is really all there is to it. It is so much, I found it much easier to just see where I was on the mitten, that if I was going every 3rd, and if I counted vertically up 3, then I also knew I was right. And once you get through a repeat or 2, and it'll make a lot of sense. Does anybody have any questions about that?
No.
Thank you for showing me that. I can handle that. It's not as scary as I thought it would be.
No, it's not
Yeah.
scary at all.
Yeah, thanks.
How is everybody on increases? All good?
Oh, I would, yes,
I'm sorry?
would like to see that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to see that too.
Okay, I'm going to do it just where I am on the mitten, so it doesn't make any sense in terms of the pattern, but it won't matter for what you need. So we'll flip that. So the one that I think I always forget is which one is pull to the left and pull to the right. The first one I believe is called to the right, but I go from the back to the front. So I take my left-hand needle, and you see this bar in between the 2 stitches?
Yes.
Yep. So we're going to pick that up, and we're going to make it a stitch. but we don't want to make it a hole, so we have to twist it. And so for this one, you would go in and you would knit it. And so it's pretty tight in that moment, but that gives you a new stitch. And now we've added a stitch in there. The other one, and now that I think about it, the first one you do is this one, where you take the right hand needle and you pick up that same bar in between. And in this one, you're going to knit through just knit through the back of the stitch there. And I'm going to do it. I have to do it when you do it right next to another one. It's really tight, so I'm going to move over one. And then I go through the back loop, and that means that rather than try to catch this front one, you just put your needle through the back, wrap, and pull it over. Oh, that one didn't work. Go in here. I've got to pull it up from this side, and then I'm in the back and it twists. If you get a hole, it just means you didn't twist it. So pick up the other side of the stitch.
Did the shakers use that increase, or did they use a lifted bar?
On those particular mittens, it is so tiny that I cannot tell.
Oh,
And I had them actually like physically in my hand with lights and magnifying glasses, and it's this dark yarn, and I couldn't really see it. My guess is that there was a variety. You have to remember, most of the shakers came to the shakers as adults, and they probably already knew how to knit when they got there. So I think there would have been a wide variety of techniques already sort of in the lexicon when they got there. One thing that's interesting is the classic shaker stitch pattern that people refer to, the shaker stitch. I read a couple of articles that it didn't particularly originate with the shakers. It was just sort of attributed to them because people saw it a lot, but it's not actually a shaker.
it's a really easy machine stitch, and they used a lot of machines up in Canterbury, so that's probably why they use the shaker rib, which is what it is. It's like you knit every row, and then you it's like a slip one every other row. So
it's not quite brioche, right?
No, and actually, if you're on a knitting machine, you pull out, they have like special combs that will catch every other tooth, and you pull out every other tooth, and then you run it across, and it slips all those teeth. And then typically what you would do is you'd take a latch hook and you'd put it back up as a purl stitch, but they just didn't. So that's what it is. So it's like a slip stitch. It's on a machine.
Interesting. And it makes it really puffy and warm.
Susie, we had a question in the chat. Cindy asked a question on the sizing. She cast for a medium size using size 2 needles, and it seems huge, over 10 inches in diameter. And she's not a loose knitter. Should she go with a small size?
That is odd that it's that big. Yeah, I might do it smaller, but I might try a gauge. For the thing is, between 52 stitches and 40 inches in worsted and 40 stitches on worsted weight is a big difference. The mitten for children is significantly smaller than the medium for adults. So what you might consider doing is taking account of what your gauge is with what you have. So if you have the 52 stitches per inch, how many inches around was it?
It was about 10 inches. I mean, it was huge. I could, you know, I did like 5 rows on it. I mean, it was, you know, like this big around. So I just ripped it out. So
it is loose.
Yeah.
Which is why people are talking about adding a ribbing. So let's see. So if I go, maybe I better show you this one. So this one came out about right. Where's my camera? There we are. So it is pretty loose.
Okay.
It seems like yours is even bigger. What I might do is take.
It was, I mean, if you move over a little in front of your face, I could see it a little better. But yeah, I mean, it was probably like that. It just seemed like that would be huge for a mitten. It looks like a boxing glove.
What you could do is rather than go all the way down to 40, take 4 or 8 stitches out. So in